it was recess and I wanted to find people to play with. And so I would go to one group of kids and I asked them if I could play with them and they said no. And I went to another group and they said no. And time was running out. I was getting desperate. I go to another group. They said no too. And then the bell rings and I was just devastated. And I go in.
Bet you were.
6 years old and I remember it like it was yesterday.
All of us struggle to some degree with conflict. Either we run in with guns blazing and can damage relationships, or we could take the other path, avoiding, right? Which avoids conflict, doesn't hurt people's feelings, but also can lead to a different kind of damage. Are feeling more resentful, pulling away, and worse, relationships that you care about not having the opportunity to heal, grow, and develop into the fullness of our potential because we're not addressing things directly.
Shorty get inspired. How about that this time? Shorty get inspired. How about that this time? How he do that? Can't be sitting gentle in the storm. You gotta.
Every time I stood up for myself, it was a vote of confidence for the man I ultimately want to become. But then I realized that if I was experiencing this, other people were too.
So today's episode is all about building confidence with conflict and increasing your ability to have courageous conversations about important things with clarity, intention, kindness. And by the end of today's episode, you will feel so much more prepared to have hard conversations without freezing, without spiraling, lowering defensiveness, and best yet, finding win-win outcomes for everyone involved.
I'm snapping now and saying cheese. Shorty get inspired. How about that?
It wasn't until I got to law school that I took a negotiation class and I discovered that this was a skill, not a talent. You could actually get better at it.
Setting the mood for us today is the artist Genesis Owusu. The song is Get Inspired, and you're going to get why by the end of today's show. I left this interview feeling so inspired. I'm sure you will as well. And welcome. If this is your first time listening, I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. This is Love, Happiness, Success. And with every episode, we are tackling a facet of your well-being, growth, love, happiness, and success. And I think today's conversation covers all three. Today, I'm talking with Kwame Christian, a negotiation expert and the CEO of the American Negotiation Institute and the host of the hugely popular podcast, Negotiate Anything. He is the author of 2 books. Finding Confidence in Conflict is the first one. And what I love about his work is that it's not about winning arguments. It's about learning how to handle emotional conversations, be brave and talk about very hard things, while also setting healthy boundaries and communicating with clarity so that you're holding your ground without damaging the relationship. Kwame has also written another book called How to Have Difficult Conversations About Race, Practical Tools for Necessary Change in the Workplace and Beyond. Kwame, we have so much to dig into, and I could not be more thrilled to talk with you.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Where do we begin? Because I mean, your work is so important, so valuable for businesses. Sure, that's a lot of what you do, but also for people in like every dimension of life. And the world needs you because this is so hard. People are like so afraid. They don't know how to handle this. What makes difficult conversations so hard?
I think what I love about this show is that I can get really nerdy really quickly when it comes to the psychology. And I think one of the things we need to recognize is that when it comes to the amygdala doesn't really differentiate between a physical threat and a social threat. It will register the same way. So if there's a tiger chasing us or a dog chasing us, that's going to cause fear, the fight, flight, freeze fawn type of reflex. But
Hmm.
if we are faced with a social threat, we're afraid of rejection or isolation or misunderstanding, we will respond the exact same way. And so it's a
Mm.
very human thing that holds us back. And we're not going to be able to have these tough conversations with the people that mean the most to us if we're not able to overcome those fears.
Such a good point. Our connections with other humans, like that goes down to survival drive level. And you're absolutely right. When relationships are ruptured, we experience it as an injury, as a trauma, and we're primed to maintain our bonds with people. And when we're in these conflictual moments, all that feels at risk.
Yes. And so when we think about this, you nailed it directly. It's like an injury, it hurts, right?
Yeah.
But we have to understand how significant and real the pain is. So there was a study where they had people engage in something that would lead to feelings of social rejection. And
Mm.
of course, that would trigger some kind of pain. And what they found was that taking an analgesic like Tylenol actually diminished the amount of social pain that they felt. Now, the key here is not to say, hey, take Tylenol every time you feel your feelings are hurt. That's not the point. That's
Well,
not.
maybe a little bit.
But the point is that the pain is real. And so a
Mm.
lot of times people might just say, hey, get over it or just do the hard thing. But the problem is they don't fully respect and appreciate the reality of the pain. So even
Mm.
though it might not look logical from the outside, to the person who is experiencing it is deeply rational because they are truly trying to avoid pain. And so we have to recognize that and figure out what it is that we need to do to overcome that fear that holds us back. And the thing that's tricky about it is that everybody's fear will be slightly different. And so
Mm.
we have to do a lot of introspection to figure out what our personal pathway to empowerment in these conversations is going to be.
Okay, so the fear is a common element, but the flavor of fear
Yes.
is going to be unique to you.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So think about this. So for me, I grew up in a small town in Ohio. And so
Mhm.
my family were Caribbean immigrants. I was the only black kid in school at the time. And I remember when I was younger, there was a moment in first grade where it was recess and I wanted to find people to play with. And so I would go to one group of kids and I asked them if I could play with them and they said no. And I went to another group and they said no, and time was running out. I was getting desperate. I go to another group. They said no too, and then the bell rings, and I was just
Oh,
devastated. And I
I
go in.
bet
I'm
you were.
6 years old, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And my teacher saw that I was upset, and she said, "Kwame, what's wrong?" And I just burst into tears. She said, "What happened?" I said, "Nobody
Mm,
would play with me." And so I remember from that moment, I said, "I will never allow myself to feel this afraid and embarrassed and ashamed again." And
mm,
so I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to not just make friends, but have as many friends as possible. So over time, from the outside looking in, you would say, oh, this is a success story. Kwame's got a lot of friends. He seems to be really popular, but they didn't recognize the hidden compromises that I was consistently making in order to keep those friendships. So I would always agree when I disagreed and just kind of get along to go along. And
yeah.
those compromises hurt you internally, and it doesn't feel good when you're doing everything to make everybody else feel good about themselves and the situation, but you're not doing it for yourself. Everybody else
Mm,
likes you, but you don't respect yourself. And so for me, the people pleasing came from that. And so I had to figure out how to overcome that so I could find confidence in conflict and stand up for myself. And so that's my origin story. But everybody else has
mm,
something in their background that will hold them back. And we have to figure that out so we can address it with some degree of precision.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I can understand how that early experience would have created this drive, this the why behind it being so important to have these relationships and surround yourself with people. And the part of the way of doing that is being agreeable, right? To maintain that, and how threatening it must have felt to be in a situation and the internal conflict where maybe you felt like you needed to speak up or say something or do something, but then on the other side, this no, you can't. Was
Mhm.
it, did you feel that inside of
Oh
yourself that
yeah, all the time, but I
Mhm.
didn't know what it was. Like it
Yeah.
and it wasn't until I got to undergrad that I started to understand it deeply because I have an undergrad degree in psychology. And
Mm.
so I treated my fear of these tough conversations just like a phobia, so it was exposure therapy. So I said, okay,
Okay.
we're going to just engage in these conversations. So I had a little rule for myself. Anytime I felt that desire to people please and just kind of let things go and pass, I would have to say something. I would push myself to say something. And that's how I was able to overcome that. And then it wasn't
Mm.
until I got to law school that I took a negotiation class and I discovered that this was a skill, not a talent. You could actually get better at it. And so for me, I became obsessed with learning how to get better because for me, it was every time I stood up for myself, it was a vote of confidence for the man I ultimately want to become. But then I
Mm.
realized that if I was experiencing this, other people were too. That means there are other people that are living limited lives because they can't stand up for themselves and have these tough conversations. And so that's why I do what I do, because the best things in life are on the other side of difficult conversations. And when you take the time to look at the most impactful moments of your life, there is a difficult conversation somewhere in the vicinity of that moment. And so for everybody listening, you have to recognize that you will not be able to have the love, happiness, or success that you want to have unless you're willing to overcome these fears and lean in and have these conversations.
There's so much to unpack here.
Mhm.
Agreed. And if it's okay, I feel like we missed a step in your story.
Hmm.
Like you were this agreeable guy, you were people pleasing, and in a lot of ways it was working for you. You had all the friends, right? And it
Mhm.
felt safe. But why did it become important to start growing in your ability to manage conflict? Because, like, a lot of people can stay in that people pleasing place their whole entire lives and
Oh
just
yeah.
ride that out, but not you. Why? What happened?
There is a limit. There's a limit for how far that can get you. And I remember
Mhm.
I was talking to one of my mentors and I was talking about the impact that I wanted to have on the world. And he said that you have to recognize there's a difference between being liked and being respected. Those two things aren't the same thing. And you're
Oh,
not
that's so
going to
true.
have the success that you want and you're not going to have the impact that you want unless you're able to get over this. And so that for me became almost an existential crisis because I said the person that I am today is not going to get me where I want to be tomorrow. So I have to figure
Mm,
this out with urgency. How do I do this? And so I had to recognize that I couldn't do it while at the same time being comfortable. It's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of effort, but there is a possibility to
yeah,
get better.
that makes sense. And how at one stage of your life, the vision of success was defined by those social
Yes.
relationships. But then you evolved, and the vision of success, that same strategy to maintain relationships, it became an obstacle. And that's
Oh,
when you want it, if
you're
I'm getting
good.
it right.
Oh, you're getting it so great. This is
Yeah.
like a therapy session. You cracked something in me because I realized the when I transition, when I evolve, I try to
Mhm.
evolve with intentionality. And one of the challenges that I've had over time was I don't respect the older versions of myself enough. And I don't
Mm.
look back with enough self compassion. I just say what I was doing in the past, it was bad, it was dumb, it was stupid. I'm not that guy anymore. Forget him. I'm a new
Yeah.
man. Right.
Right.
And what I'm recognizing is that a lot of times the behaviors that we engage in are adaptive until they become maladaptive,
Of
right?
yes.
And so it works for you to get to that point, and you're absolutely correct because at that time being popular, having friends, collecting them was what made me feel safe. Even though I
Mm.
recognize it was I was causing internal conflict with myself, I recognize that was the cost of doing business because this is what safety and success looks like for me. And then when I got to that next level and I said, oh, this is who I want to be next, I realized that what got me here will not get me there. I
Mhm.
need to evolve. So you're
Mm.
absolutely right. This was a breakthrough. I like this
Oh,
podcast. Listen,
good. You're
this is
welcome.
great.
Yeah, well, good, and but hopefully a breakthrough too for just for our friends listening, and I think that that's a message. I don't know if it's directly related to our topic today, maybe, but like having some compassion for the fact that what you have done in your life makes perfect sense always when you can go back to who you were and how you were thinking and your motivations and what was important. It always makes perfect sense. And
Mhm.
I think people want to be mad at themselves for making mistakes or not understanding things they do now. And We're going to leave that behind.
Yes, I appreciate
Okay.
that. This was a
Yeah.
breakthrough. Breakthroughs happening early.
That might actually be a new record. We've been doing this for like 4 minutes. So, but I love the way that you conceptualize this and like a phobia. And you were like, I am going to expose myself to conflict and develop this ability. So what was that like? I mean, what are like
Yeah,
conflict experiments?
it was scary. Lisa, it was
Did you
scary.
yell at people?
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that was most empowering was just saying, "I'm gonna treat it like a phobia," because at least now I know there's a pathway. Because
Mm,
when I was going through, my studies and I was learning about cognitive behavioral therapy, and I was seeing these people having these significant breakthroughs by using a systematic approach, then it really was a couple of things. It gave me a concrete understanding of where I am and where I want to go and the
mhm.
pathway to get there, and it eliminated the excuse because I could just say previously, I don't know how to do this. I don't even know, I'm not even aware that there is a way to get through this. This is who I am. I just accept that as a piece of my identity. And so it was
Yeah.
very empowering to recognize that, but it also eliminated the excuse. Now,
Mm.
am I going to choose not to advance? I can't just accept that as part of my identity. So now that I know, I'm going to move forward. And then as far as the conversations go, I mean, they were very basic. So I remember one time I had some friends that I was, and it's funny looking back on this story because these friends, they're still like my best friends now, but we respect each other mutually a lot more.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was in undergrad, my parents gave me a car and they gave me one rule. They said, "Hey, listen, one rule, do whatever you want with the car, but everybody in the car has to wear a seatbelt as long as the car is moving."
That's a good rule.
Thought that was a fair rule. And so my friends, they're big guys. And so they were all in the back seat. There's not a lot of space. It's uncomfortable. It's a small car. They didn't want to wear their seatbelt. I was like,
Mm.
listen, guys, I made a promise to my parents. We need to wear our
Aw.
seatbelts. And it became a standoff. And Lisa, it was the most ridiculous things. My
They're
friends are
like,
ridiculous.
no.
Yes. They're like, no. And in the past, I would have just said, whatever, let's just go. And I would have felt
Mhm.
like a wimp the whole time. And they would have just made it a joke and everything, but it would have hurt. And I said, no, not this time. And this standoff went for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then they said, okay, Kwame, you're going to be a baby. Fine, whatever. And so they buckled their seatbelts. We got there. And so that was part one. And so that was a different choice. And I
But you must
realized,
have felt like, yeah, at that moment, like
yeah,
you won.
yeah, it was big. I was like, I survived. And I think it's really empowering to look back at those moments and
Uh-huh.
say, like, the thing that I used to pull back from, I just walked through the thing that I feared the most, and I'm fine,
Mm.
in fact, better as a result. And so then the night continued. We got to our destination, and I talked to one of my friends, still best friend to this day. And I said, listen, I have a question. Why is it that you are my best friend, but it seems like you are the one who respects me the least? And he didn't have a good answer, and then he apologized, and we were good after that.
What motivated you to say that? What had
Because
been happening?
because the thing is, I wanted to reset the relationship, and I think this is
Mhm.
something that we can all keep in mind too, because one of the things that holds us back from stepping into these conversations after we have established a pre-existing pattern of constantly letting things slide is the legitimate fear of the person saying, Lisa, you've changed. Back in the day, this wasn't a problem. You used to say yes to every request. You used to be the person who used to just go along to get along. And now you're saying
Mhm.
no. Now you're a mean person for
I
setting those
liked you
boundaries.
better before. Oh my God.
Exactly. And as we shift and transition and grow and evolve, we have to recognize that there are going to be some people that, number one, were invested in you being the person that you were today. And they're
Mm.
not going to enjoy the fact that you are now standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, and advocating for yourself. And that
Yeah.
is a true relationship test. When it comes to conflict, difficult conversations, we often focus so much on getting what we want or achieving a specific outcome or the fear of not getting what we want that we forget the fact that each difficult conversation is a relationship test. We are giving this person an opportunity to tell us what kind of relationship they want to have with us and how they see us. And sometimes the reality is that the person fails the test. Sometimes the new, stronger version of yourself doesn't work for them because they want you to be subordinate. And if that's the case, now it leads us to a decision point because we've
Mhm.
gathered the requisite information to now make a decision. Do we need to change the dynamic of the relationship? Do we need to exit the relationship? But again, we get the necessary information to make that decision.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just pause for a second. Let that sink in, everybody, because you know what I see so often, and as a therapist, coach, couples counselor, and I don't want to overly genderify this because I'm sure that this happens for men too, but sometimes I work with women, particularly younger women, and they can get so focused on maintaining a relationship with a particular person, they will twist themselves into pretzels and try to be agreeable and be what they have to be, do what they have to do at the expense of themselves. And their biggest fear is that if they were authentic, this person wouldn't love them anymore. And to your point, when they have a need, have a right, have a feeling that they express, this person is like, oh, and doesn't like that. And so that's why if you suspect you might be dating a narcissist or a sociopath, go ahead and be a little bit difficult and they will fly off screeching like a bat. They will not want to be in a relationship with you anymore because you now feel unpleasant. And thank goodness that you just saved yourself from a life of misery because of your ability to be non-gratifying to that person.
Right. And it
Yeah.
clearly sounds like we know the same person, Rebecca Zung. Do you know Rebecca?
I did get to interview Rebecca Zung.
Yes, she's
What just made
amazing.
you think of Rebecca?
She's like one of my best podcasting friends. She's great,
Oh,
and I've
she's
had her
so
on.
fun.
Oh, she's great. I've been on her show. She's been on mine, and we collab a lot. So yeah, she's fantastic. So shout out to Rebecca. But you're so
Yeah.
right, because the thing is, we focus on trying to just maintain all relationships, but not all
Yeah.
relationships are good relationships. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things I say about negotiation, and let me just define this because
Yeah, please.
people will often think something completely different, like business suits and smoky rooms and money and numbers, but that's not what I'm talking
Mhm.
about. So I define negotiation as any time you're in a conversation and somebody wants something, and that you'll recognize that we are negotiating all the time. It's just a question of whether or not we're doing it well. And this is not transactional. We're not trying to cheapen these relationships. For me, with negotiation, there are three main goals: get more of what you want, avoid things that you don't want, and strengthen the relationship through the process. But more
Hmm.
specifically, maintain and strengthen the good relationships while using it as an opportunity to have a relationship test and recognize that maybe the successful negotiation is to identify and remove malignant relationships with minimal damage. So, bringing it back to what you said about the narcissist, once you start to stand up for yourself, again, it is a relationship test. I am not going into this in a powerless position where I need the relationship no matter what the quality of the relationship is. And
Mhm.
especially, let's go ahead and gender this. If we're in a heterosexual relationship and you are the woman in the relationship, your goal is not to do whatever it takes to keep the relationship. You have to recognize your own value and recognize that he too, in every single interaction, is auditioning for your love and affection in this relationship too. And what happens sometimes with auditions, Lisa? Sometimes people fail. And if the person fails the audition repeatedly in the interactions that you have, then you recognize I need to remove this person from my life so I can then position myself to find the right person who does not consistently fail these auditions in the relationship test through
Yeah.
chronic disrespect and mistreatment. And so, again, we
Right.
just have to give ourselves permission to recognize that sometimes through no fault of your own, the relationship fails. Let's not take that as a loss, take it as an opportunity to find the right person.
Such a good idea. And now my own internal bargaining, though, is getting triggered because now I'm thinking, like, do you actually have to say out loud, I'm so sorry, you're not right for this role? Or could you just be like, we'll call you if, yeah, and like, no?
It
Okay,
depends.
we're gonna work on
Oh,
this.
it
Yeah.
depends. And just a little aside, let me tell you a little fun thing. So whenever I do presentations or like
Mhm.
keynotes, podcasts, my goal as a lawyer, I think it is so played out to say it depends. So I try to go as long as possible
Therapists
without
say that a
saying
lot
it
too.
depends.
It's
Okay.
fine.
Good. So yeah, it depends. Like if you've just been dating a couple of times, you've gone on 3 or 4 dates, and you're saying this narcissist cannot have me. I do not deserve this, right? Then you can say, hey, listen, I'll go, I'll call you, don't
Away
call
with
me,
you.
right?
Yeah.
Be gone, right? And if it is a more substantial relationship, let's recognize a couple of things. The relationships that we have are nothing more than a constellation of conversations over time. It is a series of interactions, and the quality of our relationship will depend on the quality of our conversations. But when we
Mm.
widen our aperture, we recognize that our reputation is going to be a constellation of relationships too. So here's the thing that I want to say, because even if the person is narcissistic, very problematic, and you've been together for a very long time, you want to make sure that you're exiting well, because you don't want to exit in a way that causes a negative ripple effect throughout the relationships that you also care about outside of this. Because if you're
Yeah.
truly dealing with somebody who is very toxic, we don't just need to worry about that particular relationship. We don't need to worry about the truth. We need to worry about the perception. And if this person is
Mhm.
truly toxic and truly narcissistic, they will not be able to tolerate their status or perception being lowered or diminished in the community that they care about. So you need to make sure that you are creating a positive paper trail. So if they decide to share anything, you don't look bad. So I always think about it, when things start to go sideways, I assume that everything I say and everything I text, everything I send will be shared. So I'm not just talking to them, I'm talking to anybody else that they want to
Yeah.
let into this. So we have to make sure that we are exiting in a way that doesn't hurt us and our reputation too.
Man, we have like a whole psyops campaign coming together right now. There's like strategy and oh, this is so good. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about this in relationships. We need to take a quick break, but on the other side, can we talk about something that I feel like might be a little bit of a kryptonite situation for some people in conflict or negotiation, which is how to do this if you have a huge reaction to the idea of people being mad at you. Can we do that?
Absolutely. Yes.
What you see, my baby. I don't mean what you mean, my baby.
You know that feeling when you're in back-to-back meetings all day? You're nodding along, trying to contribute, but in the back of your mind, you're secretly stressed because you're trying to remember exactly what was just said or who was supposed to follow up on what. Meetings can be a mess, but Granola AI fixes that. Granola is an AI-powered notepad built for the way real people actually meet. Here's how it works. You take rough notes like you normally would, and then in the background, Granola securely transcribes the meeting. Then it turns everything into clean, structured, and actually useful notes the moment the meeting ends. The best part? It works through your device's audio, so it integrates seamlessly into the tools that you already use. No setup and no awkward tools. It's just your normal meeting, but with superpowers. I've found that it lets me actually listen instead of frantically typing, so I walk away knowing exactly what was decided and what comes next. Before Granola, our team would spend extra time cleaning up notes and double-checking details. Now, we leave meetings aligned and clear. It saved us time and helped us to operate at a much higher level. If meetings are eating up your day, granola.ai is a no-brainer. And you can try it totally free for 3 months. Just head to granola.ai/Kwame. That's granola.ai/Kwame to get your time back. Get 3 months free at granola.ai/Kwame. Imagine your customer. It's late. They're scrolling, and then they find exactly what they've been looking for: your product. They add it to the cart, they hit checkout, and then they realize that their wallet is nowhere near them. Passwords? Forgotten. Card number? Not a chance. That's the moment most businesses lose the sale. But not yours, because your store has that purple button. One tap, done. That's Shop Pay, powered by Shopify, and it's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Fewer abandoned carts, more completed sales. But Shopify isn't just great for buyers, it's a powerhouse for business owners too. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, you can build a beautiful online shop that matches your brand. Shopify is also packed with AI tools that write product descriptions, polish page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. And with world-class expertise in inventory, shipping, and returns, Shopify is truly your commerce expert. See less carts go abandoned and more sales go with Shopify and their Shop Pay button. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/Kwame. Go to shopify.com/Kwame. That's shopify.com/Kwame.
So, Kwame, before the break, we left it as, what do you do if you have like almost a reflexive response to not wanting people to be mad at you? I know so many people like this, and I think I'm probably better now than I was earlier in my life. But I mean, when I was younger, I was very focused on not having people be mad at me for some reason. I don't even know why now, but like it made it really hard to engage in conflict, to like risk that. And it didn't even feel like I would lose the relationship. It was just not wanting people to be mad at me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's a pattern with, again, a lot of women, men too. Where do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's annoying, isn't it? Like, and I'm saying that because
Yeah.
I've felt that for a long time, and really it's just in the last few years that I started to get over this. So this really
Okay.
hits home for me. So first thing we need to do is go in a room by yourself, preferably with a pen and paper or whatever gets you deep into thought, and you need to
Hmm.
spend some time figuring out where this is coming from. That's the first step, because a lot of
Mm.
times we start externally, and I think it's sometimes a gratifying thought to believe that we can externalize internal problems because we
Hmm.
like to avoid the introspection because we're afraid of what we might see. And so we need to figure out what it is that we're really afraid of. Because let's think about it when it comes to somebody being mad at you. Let's talk about what that actually means. So, from a biological sense, somebody being mad at you means that they have a perception that is leading their limbic system to have some chemical reactions that make them feel a certain type of way when they think about you. That largely has nothing to do with you at all. And when we just think
Yeah.
about it in an isolated type of way, we realize that it is often largely illogical because there's no actual meaningful detriment that comes from this. Because I
Mhm.
don't care who the person is who's listening. Everybody right now has somebody who thinks something bad about them. It's not possible for that not to be the case. And a lot of times we just don't know it, and because we don't feel it, because their perception oftentimes doesn't have a negative impact. So that's the logical part, but it doesn't make sense to try to persuade somebody with something that is logical for something that is truly an emotional, deep seated thing. So I think it's
Yeah.
nice to start here to help us to detach ourselves from the fear that we have and the biological reality in somebody else's head. So
Mm.
now we can say, well, why does that hurt me? Why does that have an impact on me? What is the story that I'm telling myself about this? And so for me, when I went through this introspective process, I recognized that a lot of the time when somebody's mad at me, it does not impact me at all. I really
Yeah.
had to, it was a paradigm shift because I said, well, what is it then? What is it? I think it's oftentimes at a surface level the concern that their anger or their misperceptions could have a negative impact. Then when it's not that, then I say, okay, what is it? Then it is attachment of our self-worth to the perceptions of other people.
That's just what I was seeing. I was wondering if e this is where we were going, that it's tied to, like, self-esteem, self-worth. If this person is mad at me, it means I must be bad, that
Exactly.
I'm wrong for
Exactly.
my position in this, so I'm gonna
Hmm.
fold.
Exactly. And
Is
so
that it? Okay.
then I started to think, okay, have can you ever contemplate a situation where somebody is mad at you for an inappropriate reason? Like you did everything correct, and then they harbor a negative belief about you? The answer is, of course, yes. And then you say, well, then I'm living a life where I have no control over my value or self perception of worth or self esteem. And then I
Yeah.
have to ask myself, am I willing to live this life?
Yeah.
I plan on being here for a few more decades, Lisa. And am I willing to accept that my self perception, my self worth is going to be completely contingent upon the opinions of other people that may or may not be valid? That is a scary place to be. So I need
Mhm.
to start to figure out what it is that I really care about, my true values, my true beliefs, and I need to figure out what I need to do to kind of rebuild my character in a way where I attach myself to something that is for a firmer foundation. And so when
Mm.
I think about character, I think about it kind of like almost like a video game character where you can kind of pick your attributes. And so for me, when I think about building my character, it's not discovering myself or finding myself, it's building myself. And I can recognize where I am today is not often where I want to be. So I start to think about the person that I want to be. How would he think in this situation? How would I want my
Mm.
character if I'm watching a movie of myself in this moment as I'm sitting here in my closet and in my journal writing through this? Do I want my character to go outside and think about people being mad and he slumps his shoulders, dips his
The
head, and feels
cringes.
bad? I was
Yeah.
like, that's a bad
Slinks
movie, Lisa.
away.
Lisa, do
Yeah.
you want to see that movie? That movie doesn't sound fun, right? And so I'm like,
Yes.
I need to watch a better movie. And so I say, what are the things I care about? I care about my kids. I care about my wife. I care about my impact. I care about taking care of my family, the wider family. I take care about taking care of my team. And as long as I'm doing those things and I'm working hard and doing things that I care about, and then also trying to sprinkle in enjoyment and purpose and meaning,
Mm.
then I'm in complete control of whether or not my character in this movie of life is feeling self sufficient and feeling a degree of self worth. That's who I want to be. And so,
Yeah.
whenever I think about it like that, I recognize that there are things that are going to be distractions. Because when it comes down to it, it's just about focusing your thoughts on the things that matter most. We're all going to be distracted. And we have to recognize that the majority of our thoughts happen automatically and we're not in control of them initially, but we can be in control of the awareness and the reshifting of focus to the things that matter the most to us.
Mm.
So that was my personal process of figuring out how to just divorce myself from the perceptions of others as it related to my self-worth.
That's fantastic. And thank you so much for explaining that in such an actionable way, because I think we probably have a number of friends here with us right now, Kwame, where they have work to do in that area. And maybe they aren't feeling good about themselves and they have been looking to others for this reflected sense of worth, right? And that makes it very difficult to stand your ground in a conflict. But I love your technique about really visualizing and connecting with who you want to be, that clear vision of the person that you would respect and admire and that you are growing into, and then simply having your present day behavior being in alignment with whatever that is. That's a great strategy, and I haven't heard anybody explain it that way. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, try it out. Let me know.
I'm going to do that.
Let me know if it works. I think it's
Okay.
really powerful and empowering because at the end of the day, I want to try to live my life in a way that makes me proud. One of the things that helped me to come to this mentality is recognizing that I will make my decisions based more on the fear of regret than the fear of failure,
Hmm.
because failure is something that is momentary. The way I think about failure is a tool that you can use that gives you data to reorient in a way that works for you. It's not good or bad, it's a tool, and whether or not you use it appropriately is completely up to you. Now,
Mm.
regret is something that I cannot tolerate because regret is a particularly horrible feeling to have, because if you are feeling regret, that means you did something and right now you don't have the capacity to go back and do anything about it. You would go, if
Mhm.
you could go back, you would change it because it would change the trajectory of your life and how you see yourself now. And so for me, I have a deathbed mentality when it comes to the things that I do, the way that I live my life. So I ask myself, when I am on my deathbed and I'm looking back on this very moment, what decision and what action will I look back on and be proud of? What would
Mm.
I regret? And then I say, will I look back and say, oh, you know what? I people pleased people that clearly didn't have my best interest in mind. That's how I lived my life. Or I
Mhm.
actually walked in alignment with what I know is right for me and what works for me. And win, lose, or draw, as long as I'm making those types of decisions that I can look back on with pride, that's the way I want to live my life.
Yeah. And you know what's so interesting is I'm hearing you share this. I'm thinking you're like the world's leading negotiation expert. And what you're describing, no, is this very well developed anchor into yourself, that you have a lot of certainty and that you've done a lot of work to create this clarity of vision and who you are and what you care about, and a clarity around your internal compass for what is right and what is wrong. And
Mhm.
what I'm curious to know is, like, in your work, people who haven't done that internal work, who don't have that defined strength, do they have a harder time either negotiating or handling conflict well? Like, is this part
Yes.
of the key?
Yes, for sure. Because in some ways that are predictable. So, for
Mhm.
instance, if you are tying your validation to the person that you're talking to,
Yeah.
then you are going to make inappropriate concessions to make them happy at your expense. So, that's a pretty obvious example. A
Mhm.
less obvious example is that you might have incredibly sharp negotiation skills. You might go into the negotiation and articulately navigate the conversation to exactly what it is that you want. And that may be the worst outcome for you because you're playing for the validation of other people. Hey,
Mm.
other people would like to see these dollar signs. Other people would like to see this logo. And so I'm going to do this to my own detriment because maybe the thing that I negotiate for is a promotion in a toxic environment where I'm going to take more time away from my family and friends to chase money and validation for people who don't really care about me, but I got what I
Yeah.
wanted in the conversation. But since I didn't tap into myself to understand what I really wanted, I didn't recognize that no deal was the right deal. There's
Mhm.
when we think about these negotiations, we think about the goal is of getting to yes, but the goal is really progress based on your own terms. And so what is worse than not getting a deal is getting a deal you never should have done.
Yeah,
And
like a
then
bad deal.
a bad deal, exactly.
Yeah,
And
like
then
fighting just to win, and then you get it, and you're
yes.
like, yeah.
It's that ego, right?
Mm.
That's the ego that pulls us that away. And then also the reality is when you think about this, and I think we could look at it through like Buddhist philosophy, right? The key to all, the root of all pain, the root of all suffering is desire. And
Mm.
the thing that I want to do is I want to do things that are completely within my control. It's like that stoic mentality. I'm going to focus on the things that are within my control. So if I end this negotiation making moves that I can look back on and be proud of, then I won regardless of the outcome. But if I attach my desire to something that is outside of myself, then I am going to be able to be moved and swayed by the whims of my emotion. And so really at the end of the day, there are very few things I truly care about. I care about my family,
Yeah.
my friends, my happiness, my well-being. And if this deal comes to the detriment of those things, then I don't care about that outcome. And I
Mm.
think the thing that helps me to be very strong and resilient in these conversations is the fact that the threats don't they don't fluster me because I truly don't care about what it is that you're threatening me with because I know what's important to me. You can take away all of these external things, but I know what I care about. You can't take that away from me. Here's something that I've learned over the years. How you show up matters every single day. And I'll be honest, I used to overthink getting dressed, trying to look put together without spending a fortune on it. And then I found Quince, and it genuinely simplified everything. So I bought their stretch knit pin tuck trousers, and they have been in constant rotation. I'm talking about meetings with the team, running around the town with the kids, hanging out with friends. I just throw these on, and I know I look good. The fabric feels elevated, lightweight, and breathable, but they're so comfortable. I honestly feel like I'm wearing loungewear. And that's the thing. They look polished and they feel that relaxed at the same time. One pair and every kind of day. And the price, it is not at all what I expected for that kind of quality. And here's why that is. Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're getting premium materials at 50 to 80% less than what you'd pay for similar brands. For spring, think 100% European linen shorts and shirts starting at just $34, and 100% Pima cotton tees with a softness that honestly just has to be felt. And their pants hit the same sweet spot too. Relaxed and comfortable, but polished enough to wear pretty much everywhere. Refresh your everyday with luxury you can actually use. Head to quince.com/Kwame for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/Kwame for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Kwame. Now available in Canada too. And a big thanks to HomeServe for sponsoring this episode. You know, we talk a lot on the show about being prepared, having the right strategy before you walk into a difficult conversation. But I'll tell you, nothing humbles you faster than being completely unprepared for a home repair. I remember when my water heater just gave out. No warning, no negotiation, just gone. And suddenly you're scrambling, searching for a reliable contractor at the worst possible time, watching costs stack up in real time. That is a stressful place to be. But here's what I wish I'd known. Your regular homeowner's insurance likely doesn't cover that. Plumbing failures, HVAC breakdowns, electrical issues, you're often completely on your own for those. And that's exactly where HomeServe comes in. HomeServe offers plans that cover specific home systems, starting at just $4.99 per month. When something goes wrong on your plan, you simply call their 24/7 hotline and they connect you with a local, experienced professional that can handle the repair. No panic, no frantic searching, just one call. They've been helping homeowners for over 20 years with a network of over 2,600 local contractors, 4.5 million customers, and a 4.8 out of 5 post-repair rating. Help protect your home and your wallet with HomeServe against covered repairs. Plans start at just $4.99 per month. Sign up today at homeserve.com to find the plan that is right for you. That is homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month for your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
Okay. And we're going to pivot into another thing. But before we do, this is just incredible because there's a paradox here. Like on the one hand, you have such this like strength and this firm foundation in who you are and what you believe, what you care about. But then on the other side, I hear you say that there's really a lot that you don't care that much about. And so what comes up for me is like in a conflict or a negotiation, because this is what I do, like genuinely, literally, so many times if I'm in a conflictual situation or God forbid a negotiation, I think my tendency, like I can really see things from another person's point of view. I can look through their eyes and be like, yeah, that makes sense, right? And I think that that's part of what a gift for me, but I think that it creates a lot of flexibility when it comes to situations. And so I'm wondering how you couldn't negotiate if you didn't really care. Like don't you have that like, eh,
It's about the journey, Lisa. It's
oh,
about the
okay.
journey. So this is what it means. So for me, it's like let's think about these a couple of terms and we'll tie it together.
Okay.
So empathy. And so for
Yeah.
the audience, I'm talking about empathy not as the feeling because that is not always within our control. I'm talking
Hmm.
about intentional utilization of the skill of empathy, which is perspective taking. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to just understand on a fundamental level how they see, think, and feel about the situation. What is your perspective? What are your feelings? What are your thoughts around it? I want to
Right.
truly know that. So I'm genuinely curious. I'm led through curiosity. That's one of my core
Yeah.
values, right? So for me, when it comes to just life in general, I'm curious. I want to figure out what things are like. So for instance, I like to travel. I want to see. I'm curious about the rest of the world. In order to do that, there's certain goals that I need to meet in order to be able to have the financial liquidity to do that. So you'll see
Okay.
how those get me to that position. Now, within
I
the
see.
conversation, I'm genuinely curious to figure out what your perspective is, just as I always say humans are my favorite animal. And so in these conversations, I really truly want to understand where you're coming from. That's fascinating to me. And so,
But see, that's what I do, and that's like it
yeah,
is impossible for me to fight with people
yeah.
because, like, I can't.
Mhm.
Eh, but maybe I'm misunderstanding
Well,
negotiation. Maybe it's different
yeah.
than what I think maybe it is.
I don't fight. That's not productive for me, because for me, when it turns into a fight or an argument, then that's not about progress. That's
Yeah.
about domination versus subordination. That's about me
Hmm.
versus you. That's about me winning at your expense more so
Mhm.
than me winning for myself. And in those conversations, when we turn it into an argument or a fight, we are taking the path of most resistance to our stated goal. And so I just know it's not beneficial at all in these conversations for me to do that. And so for me, when I'm one of the things that helps me to stay in a flow state when
Mhm.
I'm in these conversations is when I am looking at the person at the same time I'm trying to look in a literal sense through their eyes at myself, through their perspective, to see what it
Yeah.
is that they see, so I can understand not just their perception, but their perception of what it is that I'm saying, so I can modify the way that I speak. So I'll give a simple example. Like I said, two kids. And I recognize that sometimes if my children, especially when they were younger, like 2 or 3,
Mhm.
and then I said to myself, well, let's look at them, look at you from their perspective. You're a giant. You're like, you're enormous. Okay.
Right?
So you're scary. You're scary to him. And so what I would do is I would squat down so we are eye to eye, and I'd hold him, and then I'll talk to him in that way, and the response would be different. And so it helps me to create a deeper connection because I'm not just seeing them, I'm also trying to see myself and the situation through their perspective in a literal sense, and it helps me to adjust. And you think about it through mirror neurons, you're connecting at
Mhm.
a deeper way, and you start to get that mirroring, the synchronization, and that type of stuff. And I think when I look not just in the biological way at the person, but trying to truly, in a meaningful way, engage in that perspective taking, I can connect in a deeper way and be curious through the conversation and try genuinely to find a way to help them get what they want while getting what I want. And if we get to that point where I recognize that I cannot help them to get what they want, and they can't help me to get what I want, and the appropriate answer is no deal, now I don't feel compelled to try to force a deal that never goes through because I
Mm.
know I'm going to be content either way. So I can
Yeah.
stay very calm in the conversation, and I focus on connection and curiosity throughout. And for me, the thing I always say is that negotiation isn't the art of deal making, it's the art of deal discovery. I'm not trying to make or force a deal. I want to connect with you and understand you and see whether or not we can work together to find a deal that exists. And if not, that's fine. And then I can walk away.
This is fascinating. And you know what's happening right now is like you are creating a whole new schema, a different definition of what negotiation actually is and what it involves. Can I tell you something? And this is a little embarrassing, but like when I imagine like what you do, you're an attorney and a negotiation expert. Imagine myself being in this situation. It would be like the fields after the swarm of locusts, right? Like they're gonna like come take everything and like and I don't know what happened. Okay, bye. Right? But what you're saying is like that you have this total other orientation around it, which is empathy, curiosity, discovery, seeking this genuine win-win. And now things are starting to come together for me, Kwame, that your book, Finding Confidence in Conflict, How to Negotiate Anything, Live Your Best Life, and translating that into happy relationships, this is starting to come together. Can we talk about that part more on the other side of the break?
Yes.
Okay. So let's shine the sun ray onto relational conflict.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's okay to ask, you did mention being married. I mean, is this what you do in your own relationship? Or maybe we could use a less
Oh yeah.
personal example, but like, what does this look like when there's a headbutt? And, somebody in your house want something and you're like, no, we can't. Okay, I have a
Yeah.
7-year-old. I have 2 kids. They're both
Mhm.
insane. The 7-year-old, very attached to the iPad. Maybe you can relate.
Yes.
And it turns sometimes it can, although my husband gets into power struggles more than I do. He's like, put it down. And I'm like trying to negotiate. I'm like, I have 5 minutes and then we'll do this. And so anyway, but
Mhm.
like, walk us through an example of what this looks like when you're like, no, this really needs to be different.
Oh,
How
yeah.
do you negotiate that?
You wanna have a fun role play?
Yes.
And so let's, like, time out. Assuming your audience tips female, is that a fair
We have a
assumption?
lot of men listen to, I would say
Okay.
maybe, I don't actually have great demographics. Let's
Okay.
say 70-30
Okay.
women to men. Yeah.
Perfect. Because
Okay.
what we could do as a role play is, I can be the woman in the heterosexual relationship,
Okay.
and we can do an invisible work negotiation.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we can say it's like, okay, you both are working professionals, you've got kids, but there is the husband's father was worked, and the mother stayed at home, and so he has this
Mm.
hidden assumption that blah blah blah, and then it's been
Mhm.
causing problems, and we can kind of go through
Great.
that. Yeah,
Perfect.
cool. Okay, so should we just start, or did I tee it up good enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's do
good.
this.
Yeah, so let's approach it this way. Let's talk about the mistake that people make first. So it's shoulding on people. So
Mm.
you did not do this, you should have done that, and therefore I am upset with you. And so then the person feels as though their autonomy is being restricted. When you accuse somebody, it is a natural response to get defensive, and that's where it comes off as nagging. So now the
Mm.
guy, just psychologically and subconsciously, just on principle, he does not want to do the thing that you are asking to do on principle, right? And so let's change the game. So Lisa, my husband here, is going to
Okay.
be on the other side. So I'll bring it up to you, and I'll show you. I'll walk you through a framework for how to bring it up, and then we'll flow into it. So the framework is situation, impact, invitation. So you describe the situation in a way that is neutral and as boring as possible, just focusing on the objective facts. So no matter what you believe, you can say that's what happened. And then you talk about the impact it's had on you. You personalize it, not generalize it. And then you just invite them to have a conversation. So this is how it can start. So Lisa, I wanted to have a conversation with you because I've noticed that a lot of times when I come home from work, I'm responsible for taking care of the kids and making dinner and then cleaning up around the house. And that really makes me feel stressed when I come home. And I wanted to have a conversation with you about what we can do to make things a little bit more balanced. I wanted to see if you were open to that. It's
You're
always
always jumping down my case. And you know what? I do a lot of stuff around here too. And I work, and I feel like you don't respect what I am contributing to this family because it's just as important as you. And you're making it seem like I don't do anything. And I don't appreciate that.
Okay. And so here, I don't want to jump to any conclusion. So let me reflect this back to make sure I'm getting it right. So, from your perspective, you don't feel as though I respect and acknowledge the things that you do. And it's frustrating for you because I have requests, and those requests come and they feel as though they don't respect the things that you have done previously. Am I close on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so help me to understand one of the some of the things that you do that you don't feel like I acknowledge.
Well, I mean, I work all day and I earn money. And I mean, I provide for this family.
Yeah, and you do work hard, and you do make a lot of money. And honestly, without the money that you make, we would be in a really difficult financial position. And I apologize for not making you feel as though I respect or appreciate that. And this is a good opportunity for me to get clarity on what respect and appreciation means to you. So, for you, what specific things would you need to have from me in order to feel respected and appreciated as it relates to the work that you do?
I'm enjoying this now. I can
Mhm.
feel it. There was a shift, right?
Mhm.
Well, okay. So what do I want? Um, well, I mean, just to be nice and to, like say nice things to me once in a while. And when I'm doing something that you like and just acknowledging my contributions, that would be nice because I feel
Okay.
like you're always mad at me.
Okay. So saying nice things, acknowledging contributions, because it seems like, and you didn't say this, but there's a disproportionate amount of negativity that comes from me to you. compared to
Mm.
the amount of appreciation you get, which is what makes you feel unappreciated.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where we would ultimately go.
Okay. Now,
Mm.
I don't want to assume that I understand what you mean, though, because I can understand conceptually, but I don't understand with particulars. So when you say something nice, what does that mean to you?
That I smell good. I mean, even, men are physical, like, just give
Mhm,
me a hug, like that
mhm.
kind of thing.
Okay. And I appreciate this. I appreciate the specificity because
Mm.
that is something that I can work with. And I apologize for not doing a good job of sharing that with you. And so, out of curiosity, it sounds like for you, signs of appreciation, signs of respect, those type of things are really important to you. And now, out of curiosity for you, what are the things that you do to show me the same? We will keep going because
I love it.
you see, this is a good opportunity. Let's keep it because what was about to come out was pre-introspection, Kwame, was
Mm.
because my family does not support my business, I am now thwarted when it comes to productivity. But now I recognize it is okay. This will be fine. So, out of curiosity, what are the things that you do to make me feel loved and appreciated in the same way?
Yeah, a lot of people that I have at couples counseling, like, they would have a hard time answering that question,
Mhm.
or they would sorry, I need to stay in the role play, but, like, I'm trying to imagine what this would be because, like, in my house, my husband does probably more housework than I do, and so this
Mhm.
conversation would be completely reversed. There's
Ah.
one dirt bag in our house, and it's me. So I'm, like, trying to think about what a couples counseling client would say, and I think people oftentimes do things thinking that they are things that their partner might appreciate that do not mean anything to their partner. So I think that that
Mhm.
can sometimes be a stumbling block.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
exactly.
This is great though. But so what I'm
Yeah.
experiencing from you in this role play is that you're really putting a lot of energy into understanding how I'm feeling and helping me talk about that and what do I want
Mhm.
and pulling all that out onto the table and like all the resistance is now gone. There's
Mhm.
nothing to fight with because you're trying to help me get what I want, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
This is very powerful stuff. Although, okay, so there's an imaginary person, one of our friends listening to this is, you want me to spend 10 minutes talking to that person about how they feel and what they want when they should just XYZ
Yep.
and after everything that I've been through. Like, I think it's difficult for people to be in that space where they can do what you're doing right now because it's a
Oh, yeah.
mindset, it's a
It's
energetic, almost like a generosity.
100%. And here's the
Okay.
thing, because what we would do here,
Hmm.
so my framework for tough conversations is called compassionate curiosity.
Yeah.
So it's a three-step framework where step one is acknowledge and validate the emotions. If I see any unproductive emotion or emotion that might make the conversation difficult, I'm going to acknowledge and validate that. And then what I'll do is transition to getting curious with compassion, open-ended questions with a compassionate tone to gather information. And then I would use joint problem solving. It's not me versus you, it's you and me versus the problem. We're working together to figure it out. So it allows you to flow. Emotions, step one. No emotions, get curious. Got enough information, go to problem solving. If emotions come back, cycle back to step one. So I'll just cycle through that and keep on moving the ball forward. And so the thing is, the way that I designed compassionate curiosity is that I designed it for those same three steps to be worked internally previous to before the conversation. So I use
Mhm.
it as self-directed compassionate curiosity to manage my own emotions. So the person who's
Mm.
listening says I shouldn't have to tell them. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And the fact that you brought something up about me when I'm the one suffering and doing all of this work is out of control.
Yeah.
Dare you? But the thing
Yeah.
is, I want to give myself everything that I need emotionally in terms of validation before the conversation happens. So
You
it allows
prepare
me to stay.
yourself going in. You're filling up your
Exactly.
own cup so that you can be in that space.
Exactly. And
Interesting.
then if you get into the habit of doing that introspective, compassionate curiosity, you can
Mhm.
even do it during the conversation because you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that flare and you're going to say, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling ego. I'm feeling offended. I'm feeling angry. Okay, why? Because it feels like they are putting their own needs above me. Why does that bother me? Because I've been suffering for a long time. And why does that bother you? Because it makes me feel unloved. Okay, now what is my goal in this conversation? My goal is to solve this problem. So lashing out actually doesn't serve me. I should come back with a question and keep focused on this. And the thing is, remember what you said earlier. You wanted to come with heat, but you could not do it. And the reason why is because this is affect labeling. What we're doing is we have to name it to tame it, label the emotion, and once you label the emotion, it will trigger them to vent a little bit. You listen, summarize, validate it, and if I disagree, I still will validate you, but I'll validate from your perspective. So they can say the most ridiculous thing ever. Acknowledgement is not agreement. It's not endorsement. It is just acknowledgement. So I'll say, so from your perspective, it feels like you're constantly being attacked and you don't feel appreciated. Well, let's dig into that, because it sounds like that is the very thing that is holding you back from giving you what I want, giving me what I want. So I'm going to solve that problem first, and then I'm going to move forward. So my mentality in every conversation is I see myself as a conversational leader, not in a patronizing way, but I will assume that I have the skills and the emotional intelligence to lead this conversation in a positive way. And if the person is not behaving correctly, it means that they don't know how to. So my job is to model that behavior with consistency throughout the conversation. And then as I pay those emotional payments during the conversation for the first 5 to 10 minutes, I've taught them how to do it. And now they can reciprocate to me.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you what you want first because you need this, and I'll be patient enough to get what I want on the back end of the conversation.
That's incredible. And I could understand why you're so effective, probably in every domain of life. But I also just want to reflect back that what you're describing takes so much emotional strength, mental strength, intention, clarity of purpose. It's almost like it's its own gravitational force,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I think what other people, and it's hard to put into words, but like the emotionality and the thinking kind of flying off. And so maybe we could end with this because Kwame, if we're not careful, I could talk to
We
you
could go
all
forever.
night. And I know Dominic needs his daddy, so we'll
before
wrap
we
this
go,
up. But
let me give you the closer for the invisible work
wait,
one. Yeah, let's finish that one.
yeah,
Because here's the magical part of the invisible work piece.
okay.
Because a lot of times in their mind, we have to remember that when it comes to truth is nothing but the stories we choose to believe. And so the person has their own story in their mind, and we think about it in terms of right versus wrong, but it's not right versus wrong. That's not it. We have to figure out what their perception is and find a way for our truths to match in a way that doesn't destroy their story about themselves. So, what I would then say as we go through this and say, hey, listen, okay, you want respect, you want me to say nice things. And so that sounds like this. Great. I will do those things to you. And now, considering the fact that I came to you with a challenge, and then instead of talking about the thing that I needed, I focused on the thing that you needed. Would you be willing to spend a little bit of time talking about my needs in this conversation? Answer has to be yes. And so then you say this: I'd like us to engage in a little bit of an exercise. And so we don't need to come to a conclusion today. I want you to write down all of the ways that you contribute to the home outside of work, because I really appreciate the work that you do. And I know that you work really hard. And this is a two-income family. And I don't want to negate the work that you do. And I want to also have that same kind of respect because I work really hard. And it's really hard for me to do what I do. And now I want to talk about what we do at home. So you write a list of everything that you do at home. I'll write a list of everything that I do at home. And let's have another conversation. Let's compare the list. Now, the second conversation is, here's your list, and it's 3 things. Here's my list, and it is 8,000 things. And so then we just simply ask this question: what can we do to make this list more balanced? And that's it. So that's how you would do that negotiation.
That is brilliant. And I hope everyone within the sound of your voice is furiously taking down notes and thinking about how they're going to do their work and really be practicing these skills, which begins managing your own stuff, staying in the ring, coming in with a lot of curiosity, open questions, seeking to understand, and doing a very complete job of that. And only then will you be in a position to shift into So now that you have your side loaded up with many things that you want, would you be willing to shift? And that's when you have your opportunity.
Yes,
Brilliant.
exactly. And again, it will feel like it's taking forever, but I
Yeah.
trust you, it's just like 10 minutes, but it'll be the longest 10 minutes of your day. But trust me, it is an investment that will gain you so much on the back end too. And you'll be able to look back on the conversation. Dominic, can you please stop destroying my career, please?
Oh, no.
Can you please go, Dominic?
No,
Just go.
no,
Can
no,
I have 5
no.
minutes? Can I have 5 minutes, please, Dominic? Dominic. Okay, thank you. Thank
I
you.
love it. Nothing is being destroyed. It is only being enhanced.
Thank you. Yes, that is the good perspective that I need. When you are super ambitious, any distraction seems like a significant threat. But yes,
Mm,
so I think it's just recognizing that at the end of the conversation, you can look back on yourself and be proud. And then the
yeah.
thing is, you start to gain confidence and faith, not just in yourself, but in the process too. Because the thing that we don't talk about enough when it comes to doing the right thing in tough conversations is that it does not feel good. Doesn't feel good. Think about Dominic here coming
Mhm.
in when I'm in my flow state. Lisa, I love talking
Yeah.
about this. And one of the toughest part about parenting for me is that I pride myself in being intelligent, and they always pop in. And in like when I'm right getting into depth of thought, I'm like, I feel stupid now. I can't think.
No.
But the thing is, I can say to myself, no, I at the end of the day, I can look back and not do the thing that I wanted to do instead of like
Mhm.
freaking out and being like, Dominic, leave. I can stay
Yeah.
calm. And a big part of parenting is not doing the thing that your amygdala tells you to do. And in these
Mm.
conversations, a lot of success comes from not doing the thing you want to do or saying the thing that you want to do. And then once you
Mhm.
can start to trust that restraint and recognize that there's a difference between an emotional thought and a strategic thought, and you can start to differentiate the two in the moment, now it becomes really magical. Now
Mm.
you can become really confident in conflict.
Wow. There's that strength again, though. And I love this that there is this commitment to following the plan and doing the right thing, and also an acceptance of this isn't going to feel good. Internally, you aren't going to be having a good time. And that doesn't matter because you still need to hold the course and do the things in order to have this go the way that you want it to. And I think that's really good advice,
Thank
especially in
you.
relationships.
Yes, especially in
Mm.
relationships.
Mm. I insist on having a part 2 of this conversation
Please
at some
do.
point because there's this
Please.
whole other side of your work we haven't even talked about yet. But I want to be respectful of your time and your family and your life.
Yeah.
So we'll say goodbye for now.
Thank
But tell people where to find more about you. So
you.
Kwame Christian, the American Negotiation Institute, How to Negotiate Anything podcast, and of course, the book, Finding Confidence in Conflict, How to Negotiate Anything and Live Your Best Life. Just a quick recap,
Yeah.
but where do people get more Kwame in their life?
Yes. Well, thank you. Well, follow me on the socials, LinkedIn and
Yeah.
Instagram, and then also check out kwamechristian.com. We have different tools and resources, courses. I created a Kwame AI, so you can actually
Like
get
we can do this anytime. All right.
exactly. It cloned my voice and everything. It's actually really good. And then we do trainings and keynotes and all that stuff. So kwamechristian.com is the best place to go.
KwameChristian.com. I love it. Thank you so much for your generosity and for being just such an inspiration on like how it's done and sharing your wisdom with us. I think that many things clicked into place for a lot of our friends today. Certainly for me, I learned a lot of things from you, and I hope to have a chance to do it again sometime.
Yes, my pleasure. I'm glad it resonated. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. Cliche if it's not making dollars, baby, it's not making sense. How you picky with your art when you can't even pay your rent? Shit for years and years and years, but seems you haven't made a dent.
Friends, I don't know about you, but I am now Kwame Christian's #1 fan. Such an inspiration and such a beautiful framework for exactly what to do to hold on to yourself, get real intentional about who you are, what's important to you, and your desired outcomes when it comes to a negotiation or a conflict. Although, you know what? After having that conversation with him, I don't think I want to even use that word anymore. It's not about conflict. It is about finding common ground, helping other people get what they want so that you can get more of what you want. And I hope that you're feeling as inspired as I am about trying these techniques in your own life. Now, I will also share that sometimes, and this was coming up for me a little bit during our time together today, none of these ideas are bad or wrong at all, ever. And I think that sometimes they can be hard to do. You know, we talked a lot about Kwame's very intentional effort to do a lot of work on himself so that he grew into the kind of person who could stay connected to his values, clear about what he wants and who he is, stay connected to compassion and love, even in a conflictual situation, but also a lot of work around emotional intelligence, regulating how he felt, and even if he did feel activated, being able to act in a way that was beneficial to his relationships, no matter how he felt. And that is a hugely important competency that comes with the intentional development of emotional intelligence skills. There are also relational situations that can obstruct our ability to do the kinds of things that Kwame was talking about today. If, for example, you're in a relationship and your partner won't even get in the ring with you, or if the relationship has taken on so much water, there's been so much damage done that there's so much mistrust that someone won't even tell you how they really feel because they don't trust you anymore. That is something that can happen in very conflictual or damaged relationships. And there can be a lot of reactivity. People can come into a conflict with good intentions and then get triggered, and all these ideas go right out the window because they're so overwhelmed with emotion. Often, unfinished business from things that have happened in the past and that are still unresolved. And so I also wanted to normalize these things for you so that if you try some of these techniques and have one of the experiences that I just talked about, you know, it's not something necessarily with you. It doesn't mean you're broken or your relationship is broken. It means that there is sometimes foundational work that needs to be done to grow into the kind of person like Kwame did who can do this. And the way we do this work is through sometimes therapy, if there's old trauma getting triggered that's getting in the way, and also sometimes various kinds of coaching. Emotional intelligence coaching is a path. Also, relationship coaching is a path. If you and your partner need to understand how to be together and how to create a shared vision for how you want to handle conflict in your relationship. Sometimes you can do this on your own. Self-help is absolutely a path forward, as is educating yourself, listening to podcasts like this one. You could consider sharing this podcast with your partner, your friend, your family member as a template for how you each might want to handle things differently going forward. You can also come to growingself.com. You can take a free resource I have on my website, the How Healthy is Your Relationship quiz. You'll find it in the free resources section of my website, and you can take it yourself and also invite your partner or loved one to take it, which will immediately give you visibility into how you're each feeling in this relationship, what's working, what the strengths are, but also opportunities for growth. This can be a really helpful starting point for having a courageous conversation about things that you'd both like to be different and better. And then lastly, of course, if it feels so hard to have these conversations without it just going off the rails, despite the best intention, people get too flooded or they come in with, preconceived ideas about who you are, how this is going to go. The past is getting in the way of the present. that can be a wonderful reason to get involved with some really competent couples counseling or relationship coaching, ideally with a licensed marriage and family therapist who has specialized training, education, and experience in relational dynamics and how to improve them. And even better, if that LMFT has training and experience in coaching competencies. So, not necessarily looking for psychopathology unless it exists, in which case, great, let's go ahead and treat it. But for a lot of couples, it's not about what's wrong with you. It is about learning what are your old patterns and reactions, and is there a more productive way of showing up in these moments like Kwame was talking about? What do we want to do differently in order to get better outcomes? And this is communication skills training. It is emotional intelligence training. It is getting self-awareness, the ability to manage the feelings, but also even knowing what to say. And then being held accountable for not just talking about it, but actually practicing it and doing it outside of the room. And that is what happens in relationship coaching with a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so, if this sounds congruent with what you're looking for, you have an open invitation to come and do that with Growing Self. You can come to growingself.com, explore the free resources, but also grab a free consultation session with a clinician in my network who has all the training and can do the things we were just talking about for you and your partner. It starts with a free consultation and begin the growth. Thanks again so much for listening today. I hope you got a lot out of this. I know I certainly did. And hey, thanks in advance for passing this on. If there's anybody in your life who could benefit from hearing this, maybe someone who is entrenched in a conflictual relationship. If you've been having conflict with somebody, pass it on to them, your partner, a family member, to serve as an inspiring beacon of light for how we could both do this differently, do that, spread the love, and of course, thanks in advance for supporting the show. If you leave a review or pass it on, that is actually how other people find what they're looking for in their moment of need. So we are all doing this together. But thanks for spending this time with me today, and I'll be back in touch soon with another episode of Love, Happiness, and Success.